The federal Liberals, part of their approach to immigration is to bring in what they will hope to be a continual voting bloc. They'll try, as they do successfully, create entire enclaves. Politicians are reluctant to raise issues because they could lose that particular vote from whichever ethnicity is being pursued. Their level of gang activity, the illegal groups that operate in and out of Haiti, we would have no idea who's coming into the country.
You warned that this could be coming to Canada. Can you expand on that?
If citizens aren't raising their concerns about it, it certainly could get worse.
Stockwell Day, do you think that Islam is compatible with Canadian values?
Journalism commentary 1 year anniversary.
I don't believe journalism being funded by the government
You
is the
have to rebuild
solution.
the foundation. You have to retell the story.
Market conservative
Other news that actually matters.
I hence wanted to ask. I think they should answer their questions, especially if they're politically charged. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm Cantin-Nantel. If you tune in often, you may notice that my background's a bit different. That's because I'm in Calgary for a friend's wedding and doing the show from an office. And today we have a very exciting interview. Stockwell is a former Conservative Minister of Public Safety and International Trade under Prime Minister Stephen Harper, as well as the former leader of the Canadian Alliance Party. And he also served as a Alberta politician. So somebody with a lot of political experience. And they came on my mind recently because he has made a series of videos speaking out on various hot topic but important issues like forest fires, transgenderism, as well as mass immigration, which is a topic we've covered a lot on this show recently. So I thought I had to have him on. So we had a long-ranging interview. Nothing was off the table. We talked about immigration, what's happening to Canada. We talked about the issue of radical Islam and a lot more. And there's a lot in there that you need to watch if this is a concern for you. So without further ado, let's get to it. But first, be sure you are subscribed, hype and like the video, hit the notification bell, and consider getting a paid membership for less than $5 a month because unlike the legacy media, we do not take a dime in government subsidies. Stockwell Day, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Great being with you. Thank you.
I reached out after you got a lot of views when you made a particular video and you were talking about what was happening in Spain.
What's happening in Spain with their invasion, they brought upon themselves, and the same thing could happen to Canada. People need to get a grip and send the signal out, send it to our elected people. Canada is not wide open. This invasion that is happening in Spain is something that country brought upon themselves. Their leadership, their prime minister, signaled to the world that they don't care if they get invaded, if there's mass over immigration, open immigration, that they're never going to send back people who are there illegally. When a country sends a signal that they don't care if they get invaded by massive immigration without anybody being checked, without anybody being deported if they're criminals, when you send that signal, your country is on the way to disaster.
Can you explain why you chose to speak out on this particular matter and make a video about it?
Well, first, people should be aware, and I'm sure some will be, since leaving elected political life back in 2011, so 14 years ago, I've been in media, regularly, constantly, and every now and then an issue comes that really spikes. So I think the timing on this one, because everybody was completely taken by it, actually overwhelmed when they looked at that video of that particular Spanish territory being invaded, it grabbed people. And the other thing to do with timing, it was right in the middle of discussions that were taking place just last week relative to Haiti, where in the United States there were information coming out that over 300,000 Haitians were going to be moved back. They were temporarily in the U.S., moved back to the U.S. They didn't want to go. And so we had some consideration, people talking about, well, why don't we just take all or a good number of them into Canada? So that that was the timing of the whole thing. And then, as you know, in the business you do, and you're very good at it, some issues just really take off. They get a life of their own. And this was one of those. Within a few hours, I had, we were bumping up to 400,000 views, and it's been over 1 million when you look at the views put on other networks. So it was the timing of it. And also the very real concern we're increasingly hearing in Canada about, and we're talking about undocumented or illegal immigration is what we're talking about. And people are very concerned about it.
Yeah, I would argue that it's perhaps the biggest unreported issue. Like immigration is one of the biggest issues in Canada right now. And I'll just give you a personal example. I covered a story. It's happening in Calgary, where I am at the moment. It's no longer happening because the CBSA finally did its job, but you had Indian students with expiring visas, and they were striking to stay. And I made a video about that, and it got 120,000 views, because it turns out there's a lot of people that are very, very interested in immigration. You talked about Haiti, and I had a question about Haiti, but I'm going to ask it now. So I want to show you. This is an article. It's from the CBC. Canada urged to welcome Haitians fleeing U.S. deportations as Trump ends protected status. Now, there have been Haitian immigrants in Canada for quite a while, and there were a lot that came during the illegal immigration wave of Roxham Road in Trump 1.0. Why are you concerned about this new group of Haitians coming to Canada?
Well, a number of reasons, and that was good work that you did investigatively on that, by the way. I've been to Haiti a number of times. I've been there when I was Minister of Public Safety for Canada, because we had our police forces down there actually trying to, and I use the word trying to, train Haitian police. I've also, when I was out of politics, I was asked to join a group of people from Johns Hopkins University. They called it their Eminent Persons Panel. I joined because I really liked the title. And they part of what we did, we would visit on invitation. We would visit various countries, do a 2-day analysis of what's going on in the country, and then we would meet with the president or the prime minister, wherever that country would be. And in this case, we did a similar venture in Haiti. This was a number of years ago. Obviously, it was fraught with problems then, as it continues to be. And then we say to the prime minister or the president and his key people, if you're interested, here's our insights, here's our views, and here's some things you might want to consider. It's done off media lines, not done with media there. But even though it's well known, Johns Hopkins University, of course, is well known, and so is that program. So having been in Haiti a couple of times and really spent time and out on the streets and everything else, that the problems that Haiti encounters in their society are very significant. They go back for generations. And I could see when I saw, actually, it's interesting, you've got that story there relative to CBC. I could see and understand that there would be some sentiment in Canada just to allow undocumented people, maybe by the thousands, in the United States right now, who should be going back to Haiti, to come into Canada. So that really worked, the timing of it. Haiti's problems are historic. They run deep. And the people of Haiti are beautiful, and I love being there. But we don't need to be, their level of gang activity, the illegal groups that operate in and out of Haiti. We would have no idea who's coming into the country. And sometimes, if you jump on something quickly enough, as we did with this, government is watching. Government is almost like a trial balloon. Somebody muses out loud about maybe bringing in a group from here, a group from there, and they'll actually wait and monitor the reaction. And I think probably, for what you did there, or what I did and others, I think we said that the government was able to get a message that this would not be a good thing to be pursuing.
Yeah, I would agree that, right now especially is not the time for greater immigration intake. In the video about Spain, in which you called it an invasion, and I would agree, if you look at the dictionary definition of an invasion, it actually meets the dictionary definition of an invasion, what happened in Spain, because an invasion doesn't have to be military.
Right.
You warned that this could be coming to Canada. Can you expand on that? Because Canada isn't connected to Africa, but we've seen what can happen at the southern U.S. border, where you had millions and millions of people coming in under Biden Harris, and some of these people did end up making the journey all the way up to Canada. So, uh, a lot of Canadians, I think, too, are currently under the mindset that the immigration crisis is over because we have lowered our immigration threshold. Back in 2023, we had over 1 million people come in. So, is this about to get worse for Canada? Could it get worse, and if so, how?
If citizens aren't raising their concerns about it, it certainly could get worse. At the risk of sounding political, we know as small c conservatives that the federal liberals, their part of their approach to immigration is to bring in what they will hope to be a continual voting block of people, and they'll try concentrations. They'll try, as they do successfully, create, in fact, entire enclaves, key seats. It might be in Vancouver area, it might be in the GTA and the Toronto area. That if they overwhelm with immigrants, with people from other countries, and then this goes way back to Pierre Trudeau. I'm old enough to remember how he operated. But you bring in populations, and if you don't have some kind of sense that they're going to be comfortable aligning with Canadian values, you're bringing in problems. And in fact, then politicians are reluctant to raise issues because they could lose that particular vote from whichever ethnicity is being pursued. Canada, of course, is very open, and as we should be, and we have been in the past in terms of our immigration when it's done rightly. But invasions can happen a different way. There's so much pressure now with undocumented people in the U.S., and they are constantly looking to Canada on the Roxham Road. We've got some places in Canada where people can swarm over. And then you've already quite rightly mentioned on those who come in with on education visas. And I actually work in that space with some organizations who actually bring in people on these visas, and they need to be reminded. And the organizations, whether it's colleges or whomever who are bringing them in, have to be diligent and explain to them, we're happy you're coming here, happy you're learning from the Canadian education system, and very happy to know you'll be going back and taking your new learned skills and education to help your own country. And so it's really an affront to Canadians when they see, as you've documented there, they're here and they're demanding their rights, and they're saying it's wrong that we hold them to their word where they said they would leave once they got their education. But that's another way in which, because the number of students being brought in was very significant, and I don't mind that. It's a good boost to our economy. Um, it has a real impact, and you can have the sense that you're training and educating people who are then going back to their country, which is usually, more impoverished than Canada, and that you've trained them to be part of what will turn around the social problems and even the economies in their own country. So I'll use the word offensive. It's offensive to see them, protest that somebody actually expects them to keep their word and to go home to their country once they've finished.
I would agree. We actually read out on the show the conditions of a student permit in Canada, and one of them is return to your home country once you're done studying. The term invasion is being used when I would say increasingly in discourses about immigration, specifically when you talk about mass immigration from third world countries in the West. In Canada, so as I mentioned just a little earlier, we have had over 1 million people come in just in 2023 alone. We've had people abusing temporary work permit and student visas, particularly from India. We've had Bishnoi gangsters come into the country that have then terrorized Canadian citizens. We have an issue with Khalistani extremists. The Indian government, I had a guest on the show that explained they have it as a policy that their issue is they have too many low skill men in their country. So they have it as a policy to try to have these men move to other countries. And if a country is trying to get rid of its people, they will usually get rid of the low skill, not the high skill.
Right.
we've had radical Islamists that terrorize Jews on a weekly basis with pro-Hamas, and many of these people have only been in Canada for a few years. There's between 700 to 1,000 IRGC, Iranian regime-linked associates in Canada right now. So given all of this, do you think Canada's already been invaded, or are we maybe not there yet? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, some people say it's hyperbole to use the word invasion, but if one person comes into my home illegally, that's called a home invasion. They have inappropriately crashed through my protective barriers, and
Yeah,
it's the same.
and
So
just to
whether
add to that long list of things I said, I forgot to add, on top of all of this, there was also the Roxham Road, just people storming across every day. So yeah, keep going.
the Roxham Road is a good referral, and it was again, as a previous minister of public safety and spending a lot of time on our borders at the time, that did not have to happen. The instructions can be given, and they never were, to our border agencies, and then supplementing that with RCMP and others. That Roxham Road did not have to happen, but our judicial system is such that, and this goes out. This is telegrammed or telegraphed out to people in other countries. They have an amazing awareness of which countries are more, their borders are more porous than others. And Canada is on that list. And so people know, and this has to do with also gang-related activity coming in from South America. We have many people from South American countries who are wonderful workers. And I live in a region where I am right now, for instance, in the fruit growing industry. And there are people who come even generationally. They come here for the fruit picking season, and they're great. They are great, almost citizens, and they love the pay they get, and they go back. But there are many who don't. And so, with everything we've just talked about, and then on top of that, when we hear federal ministers talking about just wide open, talking about they want to boost immigration it's called the Century Project, to get Canada to 100 million. Well, that's the type of that is not natural organic growth. That is forced growth. That is also wide open to all kinds of problems with documentation, and that kind of rush, and then the impact that has on your social services, on the healthcare system, on the legal system, criminal justice system. It's mind altering, the effect that would have. But here you have federal Liberal ministers just almost gleefully talking about, yeah, we're going to take Canada to 100 million, when we haven't properly figured out. Well, we figured out, but we don't have the will to deal with the problems that we've got now.
Yeah, for sure. It's a pretty insane proposition from the Century Initiative. By the way, an organization that Mark Carney has some ties to. Some people don't realize that.
Different places of worship, but all of us come together. All of us must come together around the values of Eid, the values of community, of generosity, and yes, of sacrifice. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
So that's Mark Carney addressing a crowd of Muslim Canadians, and he's saying Muslim values are Canadian values. Now, I saw you made a video critiquing that comment. There have been debates in the West about whether Islam is compatible with Western values and Canadian values. So, Stockwell Day, do you think that Islam is compatible with Canadian values?
Writ large, if you're talking about, and I mentioned it on the video there myself. First of all, it's important to note, some people criticize me. They say, "Well, you clipped that, and he was just talking about generosity and things like that." No, if people watch the full encounter there, first of all, he was introduced and began a discussion on the Palestinian cause, and then he directly referenced his feelings for the people in Gaza. So he took two very incendiary items, and then he throws in the thing about Muslim values. And the stated values that we are concerned about are ones which Canadians should be alarmed about. First of all, when there are attacks by Islamists, individually or corporately, and we're seeing those increase in Canada, We rarely, if ever, hear the imams speak up and say this is wrong. We're seeing increasing violence on our own streets here in Canada, and people don't like to speak out about it because they're afraid they're going to get called, racist and all kinds of other phobic things. That's not the case at all. There are things that are steeped in Islamic tradition and religion that should be of concern. And when I don't hear them repudiating it, it's common knowledge, and we've heard it even expressed in Canada, that if there is an Islamic attack of some kind, an individual, and the person winds up being killed, it's accepted common knowledge within the mosque community that that person will go to heaven and possibly have 72 virgins waiting for them. Like, people don't like to talk about this, but these are clearly articulated to their young men. And so that's why I'm asking Prime Minister Carney, well, which values are you talking about? The Muslim values, so-called, related to women are horrendous, even in Canada. But again, politically incorrect. People don't like to talk about it. They are not afforded the equality. Muslim values, if you can call it, to reflected towards our gay community. It's horrific.
It's a
And yet,
growing issue too in the West, Islamic homophobia, and nobody wants to talk about it except for Adam
right.
Zivo in the National Post. The whole queer activists that are complaining every week about the Christians and the concerned moms who don't want their 5-year-olds to be taught about gender ideology, they're absolutely silent.
Yeah, it's very bothersome on the feminist side and others. And, sometimes, and believe it or not, if I'm downtown somewhere, and it doesn't have to be in Canada, I was really surprised. A recent visit to Japan, there was a large group there protesting in downtown Tokyo, and they were promoting the Palestinian cause, and they were, shouting death to Israel. And I actually started to engage with some of them. They clearly were not Middle Eastern, I can tell you. And I could see, and some were also, wearing signs proudly talking about the queer community. And I said, do you have any idea what would happen to you if you were in Gaza right now, or most other Islamic countries that I have mentioned? And the lack of willingness on these items, and again with the equality of women, and these are largely from the broad, overwhelming majority of the Islamic community, and this would be worldwide, these are accepted so-called values. And so it bothered me when I saw the Prime Minister being selective about saying, well, generosity, or they like their families. But do those same values extend to the entire human race, or just to their own community? That's the concern. And we know in, I think the latest count, there's 59 Muslim majority countries in the world. Not one of them is rated as, this is by UN indexing, not one of them is rated as a full-on democracy as we would rate other democracies. These are, and when Muslims, as we know this historically, gain in the ascendancy in terms of becoming majority rule, those who are not Muslims face very, very significant realities in terms of not being treated as equal. I just not long ago was visiting a refugee camp in Jordan, and this was all people who had refugees from Iraq, and not just the Orthodox Christian community, but from other sects of the Islamic community. And they'd been given the choice: you convert to Islam, or you remain here as a secondhand citizen with severe restrictions, or you die, or you leave. So, people just need to be aware of this. I have Muslim friends, I'm sure you do, and we see a very strong and positive aspect of that society in Canada, but it's still not addressing, we're still not hearing from them. As you rise in ascendancy, are you going to want to see more establishment of Sharia law? And I think people should be asked when they're running for office, for instance. I think it's a fair question to say to, even if it's a well-known person of the Muslim faith and running in Canada, he should be asked his own personal views on equality of women, for instance, on treatment of the gay community. They should be asked those questions and held to account.
I totally agree. I am very, very much worried about the rise of radical Islam in Canada. And, we look at countries that are ahead of us in this, whether it's like the UK, France, Germany. It's not great. Even in the US, we're seeing people now like the people that were elected in New York, the people in Michigan, like Abdul El Sayed, Ilhan
Right,
Omar.
right.
These are not people that have, in my view, Western values. These are, in many, I think, for example, Abdul El Sayed is an Islamist. He wouldn't say that it was a good thing that the Ayatollah Khomeini died. Like,
Right.
it's pretty concerning. I want to ask you, the Conservative Party of Canada, on immigration. Recently, they have begun to take some strong positions. I think Michelle Rempel-Garner has done a very good job as immigration critic. She's highlighted a lot of issues, whether it's with sentencing, deportations, the expiring permits, and what are the plans for that, et cetera, et cetera. But in the past, the Conservative Party, and this was under multiple leaders, including a bit under Pierre, they were more reluctant to criticize mass immigration. There was a time where Pierre Poilievre, for example, would go to Indian communities and promise direct flights to Amritsar, India. And I remember when I worked at True North with Andrew Lawton, who's now an MP, we would press the Conservatives, like, what is your number? And like, would you lower immigration to what number? And they wouldn't give us a number. They had a formula. Eventually, they became more hardline. Do you think that Conservatives would benefit politically if they continue to be critical of immigration? And do you think they should be more critical of the immigration situation here in Canada, or Mark Carney's handling of it?
They need to be properly critical of the mishandling of these immigration issues. Case in point, when I was Minister of International Trade, I made a point of going to the province of Gujarat to Ahmedabad, which is known for its entrepreneurialism, small business, and that type of thing, and encouraging trade relations. So you can do that. You can have trade, but you have to be very clear and emphatic. And I didn't have a problem with that. By the way, the chief minister of the province of Gujarat at the time I went there was a gentleman by the name of Modi. And I came back from that particular mission. I reported in cabinet and to Prime Minister Harper. I said, I think this guy's going to be the next Prime Minister of India. And in fact,
he was proven right.
In fact, he was. But we should not be shy about being very clear about what are the things we expect from not just visitors, but from newcomers to our country. Now, in many cases, and you look at the Sikh community in Canada, generations of hardworking, strong citizens fought in military combats with us. But that's because they understood, they really understood what were Canadian values, and theirs did not clash. And that's we've got to ramp things up at the entry side of things and really be asking people. It is not being discriminatory to ask people, do you agree with this? Do you agree with the equality of women, for instance? That needs to be done more strongly. So, you could see in Toronto, for instance, high concentrations of people from the Indian community, and fine, but if there is within those communities, if they are transporting, as some of them are, their internal conflicts back from India and want to have the fights here in Canada, there should be a warning. That can be basis for removal. I was just downtown Vancouver, this is just a few weeks ago, and I saw a rally and I recognized it as a Sikh rally of some type. And one sign, because it was one of the factions opposing the other, their sign actually, and I talked to some of the men there, I said, that looks like you are encouraging the killing of this particular opponent of yours. It actually says it on the sign. And he said, oh, no, you just...
Well, the Khalistani wanted their chance, is kill Modi politics. But in that, there are the words kill Modi, very conveniently.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And that's how the sign was written, because it said kill Modi. And I said, that's against the law in Canada to incite somebody to murder. And they said, no, here, look, you got, and smaller written underneath it to protect themselves was the word politics. So that's 100% what you're talking about. So we've got to be tougher on that. And, politicians can have a bit of fear of speaking on these, but I can tell you what, the multi-generational Sikhs who live in Canada, they want us to speak up on those things. They get as concerned as we do on the illegal nature of what some of the people within those communities do. So we've got to be tougher on it, and we have to be the other thing that has to be done. And if it means we have to even change some of our laws, this reluctance we've seen recently of judges, liberally appointed judges, who, when they've got somebody, they're not a citizen, they don't have protected status, and again, this just happened recently, they've committed violent crime, in many cases sexual crime, and they're found guilty, and the judge says, I don't want to deport them because they're going back to kind of a tough country. No, judges don't have the right to say that. It's not within their mandate. It's within the judge's mandate to uphold the constitutional principles and laws of Canada, and to be protecting violent abusers and sometimes even killers, sexual aggressors, from being sent back to the country they came from, and they're not even here as citizens. That's got to be changed also. But Prime Minister Carney is reluctant to do that. He will not look at ways of getting those messages to judges.
Yeah, well, that particular thing you're talking about, the two-tier justice, it comes from R.V. Pham, the Supreme Court decision. And the whole argument behind it is that, well, if you or me as Canadian citizens do something bad, and let's say we get a 2-year jail sentence, we go to jail for 2 years and we're out. Whereas the immigrant, they do 2 years and then they have to be deported. So therefore it's disproportionate. But I would argue, if you're here as a guest, you're an immigrant, you're not a citizen yet, you should be on your best behavior. Like, in some ways, it should be disproportionate because you have the privilege, not the right, the privilege of having the opportunity to immigrate to Canada. And if you're going to break our laws, like, I'm sorry, like, get out. Like, that's just my opinion. We have so many good law-abiding, entrepreneurial immigrants that come to Canada. They build millions and even billions of dollars in wealth. They employ Canadians. We don't need the bad people, right? So we don't need them. That's just my opinion on that. Well, Stockwell Day, these were all my questions, but thanks so much for taking time to speak to me today. And thank you for speaking up on these issues. I know in Canada, it's sometimes a little frightening to be politically incorrect, but I appreciate your willingness to speak up on these issues, whether it's immigration or gender or even the forest fires. So please keep it up, and thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for that, for saying that, and thank you for the type of reporting you do and the type of journalism, because most journalists won't do this. They live in fear. In fact, I am increasingly concerned about the level of fear among Canadians in general about even speaking on issues like this. These issues are what we call 80-20 issues. 80% of the people support us on it, but people in Canada, unfortunately, because of cancel culture, because you can lose a job, career, or your standing, I'm hearing from people all the time who say, thank you for speaking up, because I'm afraid to. And so I'll say to you, thank you for not being afraid to deal as a journalist with issues like this. It does give hope to people. Good work.
Yes, absolutely.
And this sums up today's interview. If you agree that it's time for the Liberals to get Canada's immigration in order, I have a little petition that I would like you to sign. It's in the description. And I would also like to know your thoughts, so feel free to put a comment and be sure you're subscribed, hype and like the video, and we'll see you very soon. Thank you for watching, and God bless.